Books are jerks. I stayed up way too late last night finishing The Martian. I was listening to the audiobook because I really like the narration, and I highly recommend the book, but I got a bit of a problem. I'm done with the book. Do you understand? I finished it. Now I have many sads. I've not read a lot of fiction in the past few years. I've mostly dedicated my time to reading nonfiction, and even the fiction that I do read, I get done with it, I'm like, good, I can check that off the list, done with that. I've read, but there are two very good books that I've read in the past few years. And this is The Martian and Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. The Martian is by Andy Weir, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. What was unique about these stories, I think, is that when I got done with them, I felt really sad because there wasn't more to read. And I felt really angry at these books because they kept the pacing really, they paced the story really, really well, so that I would want to keep reading. There wasn't a natural, okay, well now this is the boring middle chapters, so I can go ahead and put this down and come back to it later. They pushed me to get to the end, and I got to the end, and then the book was done. Those jerks. And I think this happens with a variety of media. There were definitely TV shows I watched, and I got very sad when I finished Frasier and Cheers. I got sad about halfway through The West Wing when I realized that the remaining seasons were not going to be anywhere near as good as the first few. And even sometimes with video games, I think you get to the point where you're like, okay, I got to get how this works, and I'm kind of at the end of the stuff that I can do here. And then you sit there and you go, whew. Well, what was the point? There's no more. And it's been, I think, a long time, at least with books, since that's happened to me. I have to go back to my teens to kind of remember it, but it's really forlorn and gripping sadness because you're suddenly at a point where you realize this is done, and it's not like I can even go back to it. If I go and I just start rereading the book, it's not going to be the same experience. I know what happens. And we like to think that life is not like that. You know, you move away from your hometown, we think you can always go back. And it's true. You know, you go through life experiences, you can always go back and see those people again. It's life is not like that. You can never go back home because you're going back home. You're not being home. I'm not expressing this well. Everything changes over time, and the idea that we want to hold on to these experiences and have them never change is, I think, pretty commonplace to most of us, at least. And sometimes when it's stories, you can go, well, okay, I'm going to go ahead and read a whole bunch of reviews, or I'm going to read other stories by the same author. I'm just going to try and find something that is equally thrilling. And there's comfort in knowing that you will never be able to read and know all of the things, and you can always just move on to the next thing. But it doesn't quite cut it. You know, maybe you write fan fiction, and unfortunately, in the case of The Martian, the structure of the book is such that fan fiction doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't feel like there's a story that I could tell that fits in tandem with that story without undermining it. So I guess my question for you is, how do you deal with story dysphoria? How do you deal with knowing that something that you really enjoyed is done, and that you can never go back and truly experience the same thing ever again? It's weird. Because I don't have a solution, but maybe you guys have some tips, so I will leave it to you to wrap up this video in the comments.